Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Martin Fryer. I have the privilege of being the new director of the British Council here in Korea. I've been here 2 months, and this is a very exciting occasion for me. I've met people from lots of different sectors, but most importantly, I want to thank the organizers of this year's HR Forum, the Korean Ministry of Education, the Korea Research Institute for Vocational Education and Training, KRIVIT, and the Korea Economic Daily for inviting us to host this session this afternoon. And we have here with us 7 very distinguished representatives of universities and higher education institutions in the United Kingdom. Starting from my left, Professor Mark Smith, the Vice Chancellor of Lancaster University. Hello, Mark. Professor John Hughes from Bangor University. Mr. Nigel Carrington, the Vice Chancellor, University of Arts in London. Mr. Patrick Loffray, Warden, Goldsmiths, University of London. Professor Tom Innes, the Principal of the Glasgow School of Art. Dr. Paul Thompson, the Rector of the Royal College of Art. And Professor Pete Downs, Vice Chancellor for the University of Dundee. So a very warm welcome. Please put your hands together and welcome our guests. This will be a 2-part session, as you probably already know. We are going now until 4:20, and what we've decided to do is to hear presentations from 4 of the university leaders in the first half, and then have a discussion, a panel discussion, and open it to the floor. And as I think has already been said, any question is acceptable on any topic. These are brilliant minds, brilliant academics, but also with considerable experience, not just in academia. So ask any question. But I do hope also that you have read their biographies and feel free also to talk, to ask about their institutions. And then we'll come back after the half-an-hour break for 3 presentations by the others, and we will also have a question and answer and panel discussion. The theme of this, as you know, is mapping the UK's creative industries, the convergence of art and science. We hope that this session will deal with a very current, hot topic that affects us all, and I think there's a lot that we have in common between Korea and the UK, which is a multidisciplinary, innovative approach to higher education, bringing together sectors such as design, the arts, science and technology, is the way forward. The creative industries in the UK were defined in the 1990s and are a sector that we believe employs about 1.5 million people, and that doesn't count those creatives who work inside other sectors. And we estimate that there are around 200,000 creative organizations or creative businesses in the UK, and that in the last decade there has been a steady growth of this sector. The university sector is also quite a large one, with 150 universities in the United Kingdom and a number of other higher education institutions that award higher education degrees. But what really characterizes the university sector in the UK is very, very high levels of excellence. As some of you may know, 9 out of the top 100 universities in one of the world rankings are in the UK, and 30 out of the top 200, which is quite an achievement, I'm very proud to say, for a country of our size with a population of around 60 million. The excellence of these universities has a lot to do with their international perspective. We have a lot of overseas students and many research links and exchange programs that mean that many of the cities of the UK with their fine universities are truly international through the work of their universities. I'd just like to finish, before I invite the first speaker, by saying that the British Council has a role in the promotion of the creative economies and creative industries by bringing together the experience of different countries with the UK, because we believe that the journey that the United Kingdom has been on over the last 20 years to create a very vibrant, innovative, creative sector is one from which many lessons can be learnt. We haven't got it all right, but certainly in a number of fields there are great centres of excellence. And I think we will find from the speakers, you will hear case studies which show how our universities have been incubators, have been the place where talent and innovation has been fostered and has emerged. As I say, we will open it to questions after the four speakers. And one final thing I'd like to say is that just for those of you who may not be that familiar with the way the United Kingdom is structured, I'm very pleased to say that we have representatives here from the UK countries. This is not just from England, we have representatives from both Scotland and from Wales, where over the last decade or so, the devolution of democratic power has been quite a journey for all of us, and that has included giving a lot of authority to the devolved assemblies, to the elected representatives of Scotland and of Wales on education policy. So do be aware that we don't have an education policy that covers the whole country. We have a number of policies, and that's reflected. That's a reflection of the political change that has occurred in the United Kingdom. I'd now like to invite Professor Mark Smith, the Vice-Chancellor of Lancaster University, to start with the first session. I've just remembered there is one important quotation I would like just to use as a starter. This is very current. Can you see this? I'll read it to you. This is our Minister for Universities and Science, David Willetts, with a quotation from a speech he made only a few days ago, saying that combining science and design is vital as the United Kingdom positions itself as a world leader for developing new innovations to stay ahead in the global race. He goes on to say that he recognizes the important need for these two communities to collaborate more and push forward the exciting new industrial revolution in technology. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very much, Martin, for that introduction, and also thank you very much for the organisers of this session and this whole conference for allowing us to have this session to explain some of the features of the interactions between universities and the creative industries in the UK. And what I want to do is focus through really examples of how UK universities are taking this challenge of being one of the component parts of the creative industries seriously. And as, again, Martin said in his introduction, there's no doubt now that in this transition from a manufacturing to a knowledge-based economy, the actual component contributions from the creative industries are becoming increasingly important. So it's a real economic problem as well as other social effects as well. I want to spend just a minute telling you about my university, University of Lancaster. We are an English university, but we're not in London. It's very clear. This is my first visit to Korea, and it's been a great pleasure to meet. It's been a very friendly welcome. But there's often, in the conversations I've had, there's often an equation, an equaling of England equals London. It's not true. we still have about, although London has 10 million people, there's still about 40 million English who do not live in London, and I'm one of them. And so we're based in the northwest of England. You can see right up on the coast. We are a leading UK university as indicated by league tables, so we would appear in the latest ones in and around number 10 and in the top 1% worldwide, so that's around about 150. So we do think that we are an internationally competitive university, and as I said, situated in the northwest of England. We're medium-sized, about 12,500 students in the UK, and we teach about 4,500 students overseas, and we have 4 faculties, so we're a comprehensive university. However, I want to spend the bulk of this talk talking about some of the things that we've done in this interdisciplinary area of the interaction between different areas of academic activity and also between the academic endeavour and industry. And what we did at Lancaster about 5 years ago was we created something called the Lancaster Institute for Contemporary Arts, called LICA, which actually brought together design and made it a part of a bigger department where we put the creative arts in the same academic unit, that's to say art, theatre, sound, dance and film, because the belief is, and I think you think you'll know this if you're involved in design, it's inherently an interdisciplinary activity in its own right, and therefore by co-locating things you make people talk more, and therefore more of the interdisciplinary action is likely to happen. However, it's not enough just to have those departments which are most directly associated with design together. They need to interact beyond this, and what you find at Lancaster is LICA, as it's known, is actually working with many of the other academic departments as well. And the way we've tried to encourage that is create a virtual entity, an idea if you like, which is called Imagination Lancaster. Now Imagination Lancaster is, as I say, a virtual entity which tries and captures this concept that design and creativity occur across all the disciplines and actually are sparked off by the disciplines interacting with each other. So in this idea of imagination at Lancaster, which is effectively a virtual entity, although I'll come back to one point in a second, we have LICA interacting with other departments in the Faculty of Arts, with InfoLab, which is where our computer science department is, with the management school, and creativity in management I think is an important concept, the medical school and environmental science. They're all component parts of imagination at Lancaster. Now, I said it's an idea that kind of brings these areas together in concept, but it does have, we have in a lab called the Imagine Laboratory, and it very much is meant to be a very innovative and readily reconfigurable space where you can bring eclectic mixtures of people together so they can actually be creative together. So if you came to Lancaster, we could show you what our Imagination Lab was. Now the point is, it's a space that brings in people not only from different parts of the university, it also brings in people from the outside, so there can be various public audiences, industry, the public sector, and indeed other universities. And one of the strengths, I think, of the UK sector was, although we're autonomous organisations, we often, when it's to our advantage, which is many oftentimes the case, find it very easy to collaborate. And also, we've become part of a worldwide network of such laboratories. So, for example, the MIT Design Laboratory, Stanford's D School, and the Imagine Laboratory at RMIT in Melbourne. So this idea is something which is catching on around the world. So some of the projects that are going on in the Imagination at Lancaster space is a very large project called Livable Cities. It's a collaboration led by the University of Birmingham, but also involving the University of Southampton and UCL in London, as well as Lancaster, where the idea is to bring design together with engineering to look at what cities will look like in the low-carbon, resource-secure era. And this is a project which has just started. We're less than a year into it, but it's bringing this idea of an interdisciplinary approach to key problems. Another thing about design is service design. It's not just about products. Service design is increasingly an important area. So looking to explore approaches where you bring people from different backgrounds, but particularly with people with design expertise, and ask the question, how do you create a people-centered service culture is also very important. And a small practical example, which I witnessed firsthand, was our city, that's the city of Lancaster, wanted to redesign a public space around a castle. Lancaster has a castle. And what they want to do there is, rather than it being an imposed council decision, they wanted the public to have a say in this. So the Imagine Laboratory creates space where we bring members of the public in to help throw ideas around as to what that space might look like. And indeed, that is now going to be put into reality into the town itself. What all this is doing, of course, is responding to a number of drivers. Those drivers include a wider universities needing to have a wider portfolio of engagement, us needing to exploit more commercially the value of our research, and then working across divides, so globalizing activity and also looking at knowledge exchange across disciplines. All of these things drive it. And the background of that is we're always told we need to make universities more entrepreneurial. And I actually do think universities are becoming more entrepreneurial if you look at all of the great projects that are coming out of them. Another example is something called the Creative Exchange, which is actually, again, a collaboration between Lancaster, the University of Newcastle, and the Royal College of Art. This is an example where we're trying to form small clusters, taking experts out of those different areas, those different institutions, from different disciplines, and putting them together with industrial partners, and then trying to get those to catalyse real products, services, etc., co-developing, co-creating new ideas. So to give you a small example, we have something called the Cold Sun Project, which is an example to try and raise awareness of climate change and carbon emissions in the public in general. And what it's requiring is people who are experts in computer applications, how people interact with information, and in fact management of large data, so that people can have apps on their phones to say in real time what their activities are having on the climate, on the environment. And this, I think, again, is an example of how you take information and make it accessible to the public. Another project that we have is called London Fusion, and this is the opposite way around. This is where the university expertise is not the creative expertise, but is actually the expertise that actually exists within management schools, and it's called London Fusion. So it's nice that we can export some of the expertise from the northwest back down to our friends in the southeast. But what this is basically doing is it's saying many creative companies have the idea, but they do not have the business expertise. Can we create a forum that will allow those people to actually build better businesses, particularly supporting small and medium-sized enterprises? This is a rather large project funded by the European Union, and appears to be having some initial success, being about a year and a half, 2 years in. And it's identifying business opportunities for those creative industries, and as I say, making them better industries. So I hope that's given you some examples of how Lancaster as a university is responding to this challenge of the creative industries, making interdisciplinary interactions better, and interacting with the outside world. And I think it's something that is generally an exciting area of development within the UK. Thank you very much for your attention this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mark Smith. I'd now like to invite Professor John Hughes, the Vice-Chancellor of Bangor University in Wales, to make the next presentation.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As has been said, I'm representing the sole Welsh university here, Bangor University. And Bangor University was founded back in 1884, so it's one of the older, not one of the ancient universities of the UK, but certainly one of the older institutions. It also has a very interesting history in that, as I'll show you in a moment, the area where Bangor is placed was originally very famous for mining. Indeed, in 1884, it was the largest producer of copper and aluminium in the world. And the miners actually funded the university to educate, not their children actually, but their daughters. And so the university was founded originally as a university to educate women, although it has become a more comprehensive and more co-educational university over time, with, like Lancaster, around 12,500 students. The university is based in sorry, I need to go back one more. How do I go back? That's it, sorry. The university is located in the northwest corner of Wales, not far from centres of population like Liverpool and Manchester, but far enough, around 60 miles, to have quite a unique culture of its own, a very strong Celtic or Welsh culture, where many of the people speak Welsh as a matter of course, and indeed it was a condition of my taking up the post as Vice-Chancellor that I actually learn the Welsh language. So it's a very cultural region, very focused very much on Celtic, Celtic dance, the Celtic languages, and Celtic theatre. And that's important for what I'm going to talk about in a moment. The mining industry, of course, is gone. And so the industry that is there now is based largely around modern technologies, particularly renewable energy, information technology, medical devices, and so on, but particularly renewable energy and IT. And indeed, the island that you can see just off the coast there beside Bangor has been designated by the government in the UK as Energy Island, focused on renewable energy. It has a nuclear power station, it has wind energy, it has wave energy, and biomass as well. But the project that I want to talk to you about is a project called Pontio, which is an arts and innovation hub, which is designed to bring together innovation within the arts and science. It's a £45 million project. That's about 80 billion won, Korean won. So a very, very large project. And it's a collaborative investment from the European Union, from the UK government, from the Arts Council of the United Kingdom, or the Arts Council of Wales, and of course the university itself. So a very substantial investment. And indeed, this investment has come about in part because the area in which Bangor is based, as I said to you, old declining industries, new industries beginning to come in. The area is an area of special investment, has been designated as an area for special investment by both the European community and by the British government. And the idea of Pontio is that it should be a bridge between arts and science, foremost, but also a bridge between research and teaching within the university, and a bridge between the university and the community in which it is based. And actually the word Pontio is the Celtic or the Welsh word for to bridge. And those of you who know some French, for instance, pont is French for bridge, and similarly in Welsh. And the idea of Pontio is to bring together a vast array of components from the creative industries, from the performing arts, and from science and innovation. So it has an area, this is a massive building, over 4,000 square meters. It has a large theatre. It has a studio theatre focused primarily on student performance, and a cinema. It has an innovation hub, and that's the part that I'm going to talk primarily to you about in a moment. It also has facilities for the students union, so the students are playing an immensely important role in this, and it has state-of-the-art facilities for teaching and learning. The project is almost complete. It will be opened in about 3 months' time, and has taken almost 3 years to develop. So the part that I want to talk to you about, because really this is what the theme of the conference is about, is what the Innovation Hub is doing. And the Innovation Hub that's another, that picture is just another perspective of it, which shows you the amphitheatre part of the building, and it also gives you an impression of just the size and the scale of the building that is almost on our doorstep. So the idea of the Innovation Hub is to create an environment that will cultivate discovery, creativity, and innovation. That is, Pontio, we hope, is going to be a place where ideas within the university are explored, or created and developed in particular to the point of commercialization. And so the idea is to promote entrepreneurship within the university. As Mark said, universities in the UK are becoming much more entrepreneurial, and we're beginning to support our students and our staff, our research staff, in terms of generating spin-out companies and such like. So the components of the Innovation Hub are a fab lab, for instance, for digital rapid prototyping, a space which is being called a hack space, which I suppose comes from the computer word of hacking, which is where people will, from our electronics and computer science, will interact with the people from our design areas within the university to focus on innovation within computing. A prototyping workshop focused on materials and functional prototyping, again drawing on aspects of design and also our engineering facilities within the university. A design studio, which will allow students a home for their design projects. And very flexible seminar and working space, reconfigurable within Pontio to give students the kind of space and kind of flexible environment in which we hope will foster the kind of innovation that we're looking for. We will also have pre-incubation space for our spin-outs and spin-ins from the university, and we already have a lengthy pipeline of both spin-outs and spin-ins simply waiting to occupy that space. The innovation themes that we're focusing on initially are arts and culture, of course, the health sciences, which includes not just medical sciences. I mentioned that medical devices and other aspects of medical sciences are quite important within the region, but it includes nursing, well-being, neuropsychology, aspects of psychology important for instance, for mental health, and of course the environmental sciences, particularly those aspects of environmental science which relate to renewable energy. So the idea is to have this hub where arts and culture, health sciences, environmental sciences, and indeed other aspects of the university. Electronic engineering will be in there as well because they're often a catalyst for many of the products that are developing. And within that we have these elements such as design studio, white box, and showcase environments where people can demonstrate their creativity. So that's it. Pontio, we hope, will be an environment for expression, for students to express their creativity. The community focus is an extremely important part of that, linking to the community and linking to the business community, and very strongly focused in technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor John Hughes. I'd now like to invite Mr. Nigel Carrington, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Arts in London.
Good afternoon. I'm Nigel Carrington. I represent a university that is a little bit different from the two that you've just heard from, because my university is a specialist university. We teach and research only in art, design, fashion, media, and the performing arts. We don't have a science or engineering faculty. This means that we have many advantages when we're dealing directly with the creative industries, but it's also given us a challenge when we cross over into science. And I'm going to talk a little bit more later about the particular challenges that come from a specialist university. We're the world's largest specialist university for the creative arts. We have 18,500 students in London specialising in those creative subjects. But we're also very unusual because we're multicultural. 47% of our students come from outside the UK, and 700 students are from Korea. Many of those students, of course, return to Korea when they finish studying in the UK, but almost all of them maintain strong working links with the UK after they've returned. So in my presentation today, I'm going to pick out examples of how a large but specialist multicultural university has engaged with the creative industries, but also with science. So let me start in 2002, when we established the Innovation Centre at Central St Martin's. It was really based on two beliefs. The first was a recognition that our artists and designers are trained in a way that makes them innovators. We heard in our opening presentation, the keynote speech this morning, about the importance of failure in moving forwards. The way we teach art and design in the UK is by working with our students in independent learning, so that they themselves are experimenting with their own creativity, and inevitably in doing that, they learn to fail as well as to succeed. They can cross boundaries between cultures, and they can cross boundaries between disciplines. They're networkers and they're restless, and most of all, they love change. And that is why really so many creative students go on to be change implementers, not only in the creative industries, but in other industries. So that was our first core belief. It was about the particular independence of learning and capacity to change that creative students have. The second, though, was that if you're going to work successfully with business, you really have to understand the demands of business. You have to understand how to deliver to a budget and how to deliver to a timetable. So we brought into the Innovation Centre to work alongside our artists and creatives, people who understood how to respond to business opportunities. And increasingly, companies have worked with us because we've helped them to predict the future before it happens. We've helped them to design products and services to meet changing taste and to meet emerging demand. The Innovation Centre is operated as a separate entity within the college. It now has a turnover of more than £3 million, and we've recently had a joint venture with a venture capital fund, which is backing some of our students' innovative startup ideas with creative potential. Moving on from that, because our university is a leader in fashion, we set up about 10 years ago a Centre for Fashion Enterprise. This is an incubator which provides expert guidance in the fields of finance and law, as well as fashion manufacturing and modern manufacturing techniques. It essentially brings young designers who we believe have potential into an incubator environment on a 2-year residential venture program, and it supports and advises more than 300 other young designers on an occasional basis, as well as hosting internships. We've hosted in that centre more than 1,000 internships over the last 10 years. And once that was operating successfully, we began to think about the particular challenges that the UK has, because the cost of its manufacturing meant that many of our designers were having all of their products manufactured outside the UK. In fact, more than 75% of the clothing designed in the UK is manufactured outside the UK. So working with local communities, with investment from one of our London boroughs, we've developed a design and manufacturer innovation support centre, which makes available to the community, not to our students, design skills and advanced manufacturing technology to help those young design businesses to consider manufacturing in the UK. And this success of the university has led to other incubators being formed in a part of London that really is quite poor. And partly as a result of that work, Hackney, that area, is being revived as a fashion hub, bringing new investment and jobs to that part of London. But let me move on now from our work directly with the creative industry to the issue of crossover with other disciplines. About 4 years ago, we decided to create some postgraduate courses that looked specifically at that crossover. The first was an MA in Art and Science, which we launched 2 years ago at Central St Martin's, which is really based on building working relationships between artists on the course and scientists in projects as diverse as technology, biomedicine, and anatomy. The students on the course work with scientists and really investigate how scientific ideas can inform and inspire artistic practice, as well as how science can be illuminated through art. And my final example will show a way in which we've been doing the latter, really illuminating science through art. And the second course that we developed to help students to think about crossover and the processes of innovation wherever they're applied is a course in innovation management. That course works from the principle that innovation is rarely random. And students on this course develop skills which allow them to manage projects in a way which maximizes their opportunities to innovate successfully. Many of the students that start on the course have a design background, but the graduates from the course are entering fields as diverse as science, social entrepreneurship, architecture, and business. So just to give you 3 examples of way in which ways in which our creative academics and students have worked in crossover disciplines. First of all, I'm going to talk about design against crime. This is a research centre of our university which works with social scientists and crime scientists to study the causes and effects of crime and then use open innovation techniques to explore how crime can be reduced. The centre started its life focusing largely on tackling common crimes which occur in urban areas everywhere in the world. And probably the best known early example of its work was work with the Mayor of London to investigate how we could get more people to cycle rather than drive in London. And when we worked with those crime scientists, we realized that a lot of people were cycling not because of were stopping to cycling not because of the physical danger of cycling, but because their bicycles were being stolen. So we set about looking at ways to reduce theft. We signed a commercial contract to design new, more secure public bicycle stands funded by a local government, and bicycle crime fell as a result. We then designed chairs because bag theft in cafes was quite high, which are very simple really, but which help to reduce crime by thinking about how to help people to secure their personal possessions when they're relaxing. And this has some impact here in Korea. This is your Mayor Park, who came to the UK 3 years ago and spent some time with the Design Against Crime unit. He came back to Seoul, and in fact, as many of you will know, not because of the exclusive work of our unit, but because of the imagination of the mayor and academics here in Seoul. There have been some very, very interesting projects introduced here in Seoul which work around those principles which we originated in London. And we're now working with the Hope Institute at Seoul National and the Seoul Design Foundation and Designing Out Crime Centre. So 2 last examples. The first is our Textile Environmental Design Group. And this essentially addresses the issue that clothing manufacture is the second biggest polluter of the environment. It consumes massive amounts of water, the byproducts of dyes can be toxic, and the washing of clothes consumes huge amounts of energy. So our textile environment design team has worked on these principles which essentially are designed to make textile production more environmentally friendly. And this is an example of a product which has been devised by our design scientists and by fibre and material scientists in Sweden to fuse the fibre into fibre from the trees into non-woven material with paper to make disposable fast fashion. But finally, the capacity of art and design to stimulate scientists to think about the future. BioLace is a speculative design project for which a textile design team at Central St Martin's has taken a key role in working with synthetic biologists to design the future. The project looks forward to the year 2050 when it's predicted that we'll face a global shortage of food, clean water and raw materials, and then explores what it could mean to design products that can be made by a living cell. And this project proposes to use synthetic biology as an engineering technology to reprogram plants into multi-purpose factories. It asks us to imagine hydroponic organic greenhouses where new species of plants would produce augmented food at the same time as growing fabrics from their roots. It's a genetically foreseeable, although not yet existing, engineered plant. And it allows us to do a number of things. It allows us to explore whether biological engineering could promote a new kind of sustainable textile manufacturing. But it also poses some of the most challenging questions in contemporary genetics in terms which become universally acceptable. In this example on the screen, for instance, it poses the ethical question whether you'd be prepared or able to eat a vitamin-rich, genetically engineered black strawberry from a plant that produced your little black dress? These are the sort of questions that artists and scientists working together must address if we're to successfully resolve the global environmental crisis. These sort of questions will help us to deal with some of the most urgent environmental and economic challenges of the future. And we believe that artists, scientists, designers working together are going to make the big difference to that future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nigel Carrington, Vice-Chancellor of the University of Arts London. And I'd now like to invite Mr. Patrick Lochray, Warden of Goldsmiths, University of London, to give his presentation.
Good afternoon. Am I audible? I can't tell. Yes? Goldsmiths is in London. It's like Nigel's university, it doesn't have science, hence we're obliged to collaborate with other universities that do, other universities across the world, and that's quite a strong thing. There are 9,000 students, some from some 137 countries, and a very distinguished 200 of them come from Korea. We focus on the fine arts, design, humanities, and social sciences. And all that we do is inspired by our primary interdisciplinary convergence activity, and that is research. And it is research which informs all of our teaching and which is the bedrock of the collaboration that is characteristic of our place. You saw a brief preview, and I'll show you again. We are the home of Damien Hirst and the young British artists. And in that one slide, you can see a degree of convergence in its own right, can't you? There you have fine art, jewellery, dentistry, pathology, and being Damien Hirst, high finance. It costs a fortune. But ultimately, we believe that great institutions are inspired by the people who attend them, and that it's the creating space and giving support to the key creatives. If we have any collective message to give to you in Korea about nurturing the convergence of great art and great science, it is about finding the right individuals. This is another graduate of ours, Damien Gormley, and it celebrates the shipbuilding industry in the northeast of England. It's called Angel of the North, and it is in itself a wonderful collaboration between engineering and fine art. This painting hangs in my own office. It's only of 2 years vintage, and it is painted by a marvelous Korean artist, Yu Jung Chang, and her career is blossoming, I'm glad to say, but it represents a different kind of convergence, a different fusion between Eastern traditional culture and modern fine art. And that young gentleman is, does anyone recognize him? Why are my slides moving spontaneously? That was Alfred Hitchcock when I got him back. He came to Goldsmiths in 1914, and he went on, after a degree in fine art, to basically find and inspire, why are these slides moving, the British film industry. Early days pioneering into industry, early days foundation. But perhaps the graduate that I'm most intrigued by from our history is Mary Quant. Mary Quant basically invented that item which liberated modern costume for women, the tights, inspired by theatrical dressing. And Mary went on from there to the miniskirt and to hot pants. And she played a very large part in the revolution that was the British fashion industry of the 60s and the 70s. When she came to Goldsmiths, she said every other student was armed with a fountain pen. She had a pair of scissors. And this young man is James Blake. He won the Mercury Award last week. He is a graduate of ours, again, very recent. And James is a classically trained musician, would you stay there? And yet he performs and composes all of his music by computer technology. And now the creative arts, I believe in Korea as in London, are defining the culture of our place and our sense of ourselves. The opening ceremony of the Olympics was a celebration of the industrial past of the United Kingdom, informed and inspired and created by the creative industries. That convergence of self-confidence and self-esteem is critical. And this is the Ginkgo biloba, which I see on every street and every corner in Seoul. And it reminds me of an old image from business school, and that is that growth happens on a tree at the farthest branches, not on the trunk. The new shoots are on the far branches. So look at the points where disciplines overlap to find true innovation, not always at the trunk of the tree. The creative arts define London, and we believe we're at the centre of the creative arts in our own way. And the middle one of these, theory and practice, universities must learn to applaud and celebrate the lady with the scissors with exactly the same passion and commitment as they do the thick tome of a PhD thesis. We must have parity of esteem, and interdisciplinarity and innovation has to be at the very core of the university's strategy. I want to say something about creative computing, the last of these on this slide, because it is the one DNA seam that runs through everything that we do at Goldsmiths. It inspires our creative computing. It is the department that increasingly creativity in fine art, in design, in music is driven by modern computer technology. And where human creativity ends and computer-generated genius takes up is one of the most interesting studies in psychology and in the creative industries. And it's a field in which we are fascinated and to which we have devoted a lot of energy in collaboration with, because partnership is indeed the way of the future. We work with Dell, with Microsoft, with Apple, and with many big players in industry, and with many other global universities to explore the boundaries of contemporary creativity. And one of the main engines that I want to leave you with, one of the institutions of which I'm most proud in Goldsmiths, is that for Institute for Creative and Cultural Entrepreneurship, because it provides young artists, young social scientists, young musicians with the skills of business. In the past, they have too often been vulnerable in the workplace. Their intellectual property can be squandered and lost and exploited. Every single student at Goldsmiths now has an opportunity to learn basic business training. How to write a business plan, how to understand the profit and loss account, how to run your own small or medium-sized enterprise. It is one of the most popular offers we make, and it gives young people the opportunity to become the Alfred Hitchcocks and the Mary Quants of the future. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patrick Lochray, Warden, Goldsmiths, University of London, and I promise you that nobody on this table sabotaged your presentation. Well, we'll fix the glitch in the PowerPoint for the second session. We've got around 25 minutes. I feel that we have heard some very concrete examples of convergence, of multidisciplinary approaches from 4 very different institutions from different parts of the United Kingdom with very different histories. There are some common themes, particularly the link between the important link between universities and the community, with industry. But at the heart of it all is the individual, the experience that the student or the graduate gets at a really fine institution, and the freedom to grow, to create, and to innovate. I'd now like to open the discussion and invite any of you to ask a question. Who would like to kick-off, as we say. There's somebody at the back. Is there a microphone to reach you? If you could say your name and where you're from, it would be very useful for us. Any microphone? Here it comes.
예, 7분 말씀 오늘 뵙게 돼서 영광이고요. 지금 이번 세션에 참가하게 된 이유는 아까 앞전 아래층에서
Just one
진행됐던
minute. Can you wait? Let everybody get their earphones on. Yep. Sorry, we're being very
sorry.
English. No. Don't apologize.
여기가 한국인 관계로 한국어로 질문을 드리겠습니다. 사실은 영어를 잘 못해서 한국어로 질문을 드리겠습니다. 이번 세션 참가하게 된 이유가 아까 1층에서 진행된 피터 다운즈 총장님의 이제 학제 발표를 듣고 질문을 하고 싶었는데 시간을 안 주셔가지고 이쪽으로 참여를 하게 됐고요. 근데 참 다행스러운 게 이번 세션도 지역 대학과 지역 사회에 어떻게 기여를 할 수 있을지 그런 부분에서 얘기를 해주셔가지고 공통점이 좀 많은 것 같습니다. 우선 인사를 좀 드리고 싶은데 저 같은 경우는 지금 총장님들이 계신 대학 같은 곳에서는 지금 직업을 준비하는 학생들의 취업 역량 강화를 위한 HR 부분 교육을 담당을 하고 있고요. 아까 총장님들께서도 이제 의료기기 그리고 헬스케어 쪽으로도 많이 발전을 하고 있다 말씀을 주셨는데 그 분야에서 세계에서 제일 유명하다고 하는 GE와 지멘스의 HR 인사교육을 공동으로 담당하고 있는 교육 담당자이기도 합니다. 만날 수 있게 뜻 반갑습니다. 위너스 HRD의 최석영 대표라고 합니다. 우선 질문을 드리고 싶은 게 제가 아까 말씀드린 대로 지금 기업과 대학에서 HR 교육을 하고 있는 입장이라서 이런 부분에서 좀 현업과 관련돼서 아까 말씀을 들으시다가 좀 느끼게 되는 부분이 좀 많았습니다. 우선 대학이 가지고 있는 부분은 사실 좀 저 같은 경우는 이제 어떻게 생각을 하냐면 동일한 커리큘럼이나 동일한 것들을 받아들이더라도 그것을 어떤 개념과 인식을 가지게 되느냐에 따라서 완전히 다른 결과가 나올 수 있다고 생각을 합니다. 현재 대학은 이제 지금 우리나라 같은 경우는 학생들이 사회 진출을 하기 위한 하나의 핵심적인 과정에 속해 있는 부분이라고 생각을 하는데요. 한국의 학생들도 아까 피터 다운즈 아래층에서 총장님께서 말씀해 주셨듯이 우리나라 한국의 학생들도 던디 대학교와 마찬가지로 우수한 커리큘럼과 다양한 산학 활동을 마찬가지로 겸하고 있습니다. 그런데 이 모든 우수한 과정들이 학생들이 사회 진출을 할 때는 직업 선택의 부분에서 굉장히 많은 충돌을 하는 것을 제가 현업에서 굉장히 많이 접하고 있습니다. 기업을 선택할 때 대학과 지역사회가 대학이 이제 지역사회에 기여를 할 수 있으려면 저는 지역에 있는 우수한 기업들 그리고 중견기업 소위 말하는 대기업만이 아닌 그런 곳으로도 가서 역량을 살려서 발전을 할 수 있는 곳 하나의 방법이라 생각을 하는데 많은 학생들을 지금 가르치다 보면은 우리 한국 같은 경우에는 삼성, LG 혹은 포스코, STX 같은 곳이 아니면은 아예 취업을 하려고 잘 생각을 하지를 않습니다. 그런 부분이 지금 우리나라 같은 경우는 이게 한국이라는 상황이 처한 여러 가지 경제 문화, 사회 인식의 문화와도 복합이 되어 있기 때문에 드러나는 하나의 결과라고 생각을 하는데 이런 부분에서 던디의 학생들 같은 경우에도 학생들이 이제 던디 대학교의 커리큘럼을 이수하고 나오게 되면은 창업을 하든 사회활동을 또 회사에 취업을 해서 하게 되든 선택을 해야 될 거로 알고 있는데 이때 학생들이 선택을 할 때 던디대 학생들 같은 경우는 어떤 기준으로 좀 자기의 진로를 선택하고 회사를 선택하는지 그런 분위기가 좀 알고 싶습니다. 내가 하고 싶은 것을 선택해서 배우고 진로를 선택을 하게 되는지 아니면은 내가 어디에 들어가면 잘 살게 될 수 있다 하는 것을 선택하라는 점 궁금하고요. 답변을 주시면 제가 우리나라에서 학생들과 소통하는데 그리고 지금 이 자리에도 많은 학생들이 있는 것 같습니다. 학생들이 앞으로 진로를 선택할 때도 내가 어떤 인식을 할 수 있을까 하는 부분에서도 조금 생각을 한번 해볼 수 있을 것 같아서 질문을 드리고요. 질문이 좀 길었고 약간 추상적이고 좀 어리석은 질문일 수도 있다고 판단이 되는데 그럼에도 불구하고 총장님께서 현명하신 답변 좀 해주셨으면 좋겠습니다.
A very interesting area. Peter, would you like to start, and then perhaps John a follow-up, particularly about the link with the medical industry. Peter.
That's it. Okay, well, you did mention Dundee quite a lot, so I suppose that's why I'm getting to answer this question. What you commented on a lot also was the importance of small to medium-sized enterprises as outlets, as career outlets for graduates from our programs. What I would like to do is refer you to my presentation later on, which will talk a lot about new ways to develop, or innovative ways to develop ideas, new business ideas, which has a huge impact on SME formation. So that's one answer to the question. I would say currently most of our graduates tend to go into, more than 90% go into small businesses, and very often into business on their own, because that's a very common outlet for artists and craftspeople and others. And it's my belief that they don't currently get enough training in entrepreneurial and business skills. We have a very strong program of extracurricular activities that does provide that training, and it's nearly 100% attended by students from School of Business, and interestingly, very seldom by those in the School of Art and Design. So there's an interdisciplinary element that we haven't talked about that perhaps needs to be brought out in our schools.
Thank you, Peter. I'll move now to John, because of obviously the link between the work that you're doing on innovation, health sciences, environmental sciences.
Yeah, well, perhaps just first a little bit more generally to focus on your question and to follow on from what Peter said. UK universities are now putting a huge amount of effort into employability in general. The broad range of skills actually required to both prepare students for their careers, but also to give them the skills to choose the career that they want to go into, whether that be their own company or into a multinational or whatever. And of course, employability skills take many different forms. There are the basic skills of communication skills and so on, which build on the character of the person, but also the experiential aspect of it. And certainly in my own university, that experiential aspect can take many different forms, from working in community-based projects, working in hospitals, and also giving them the opportunity to develop their own ideas. And we're running, for instance, competitions within the universities for the best entrepreneurial idea. We're giving, and there are national programs which are where students can compete against other universities. So there's a huge amount going on. One of the specific things we're doing within the medical side in Bangor is linking up with the hospitals in the region to give our medical practitioners advanced experience of dealing with patients insofar as they can, given the very, very professional nature of health sciences. And we also have a very strong medical devices area within the Bangor area, and the companies there are heavily involved in some of the projects that I mentioned.
Thank you, John. I'll invite Mark now and then Nigel to respond.
Yeah, just two brief comments from me. It was very interesting what you said about most of your students wanting to go on into multinationals. One of the things that's very clear, if you look at all of the statistics, the number of jobs created, and the number in the UK is the number that I know, is that more than 85% of them are created in SMEs rather than the multinationals. Therefore, the jobs market is driving people to that's the type of a place they'll go. And the other thing that's very difficult for students, people sitting on this stage, we're all in kind of various stages of middle age. And, the idea that you go to a company or you go into a job and 40 or 50 years later, that's what you'll still be doing with that company is yesterday's model. Because of the pace of change in the economy, companies come and companies go, and therefore the idea that you will have a career in one particular company is effectively dead now. And therefore, I think students need to be prepared as part of their education, both at schools and universities, to think about their career development in a different way. The second point is about SMEs, and it's very interesting, the attitude of SMEs towards needing graduates. Santander, who you probably know, are a very big bank, and they're very good at interacting with universities. pioneered a project first in Spain, but it's now across all of Europe, where they did a survey of SMEs and they asked them the question, do you think you need a graduate? And the answer was overwhelmingly no. So what Santander did is they offered to pay for a graduate to go into an SME for 3 months, and then they asked the question again, do you think you need a graduate? And the answer changed to completely the reverse. The majority, clear majority, then said yes. The point being, you don't know what skills you don't have until you actually experience them. And therefore, I think it's an education both on the side of the student about the nature of their career and also those type of companies that they need the skills that a graduate can bring to them.
Thank you, Mark. Nigel.
My colleagues have said a number of things that I would have said, but the one I really do want to stress is that the UK creative sector is built on small and medium-sized enterprises. And I think we've perhaps been, we've been lucky because the government did recognise that, and our government has stimulated a growth area in Tech City in London to make it attractive to cluster small startups in one part of London. Indeed, there are now some government loan schemes in the UK which are soft loans to people who are starting up small new businesses. And certainly there is not, I think, the same sort of binary view as there probably still is in Korea about your career. You can start life in an SME in the UK, in fact, many of the most creative people do, and then move into a larger company in later life. And starting in an SME is not a sign of lack of success. And I really would also, as somebody who started life as a lawyer and then ran an automotive design company and now is the president of a university, one really shouldn't think about one's career as binary in that way. I think the most exciting thing about the, if you like, the creative revolution is that our lives will change throughout our lives. And I think it's the job of universities to prepare their students to be able to work in any environment, small or large, and to have a sense of optimism that the skills you learn at university are the skills that will prepare you to make the shifts from whatever world you start in to whatever worlds you move through your life. And I think that's the biggest challenge for all of us involved in education, is to give our students that sense of empowerment and possibility about their creative futures, because creativity is all about moving between different areas. It's all about change. It's about not being afraid that you can do something different. And if there's one message I think I'd love to give, and I think it's the most important message for education, it's about giving students the confidence to feel empowered to make changes in their own lives as well as in society.
Thank you, Nigel. Patrick, do you want to add something?
To emphasize points made, but I think that dexterity and movement, openness on the part of higher education is critical. Universities cannot be the old-fashioned ivory tower, and I hope that what you've heard from the panel today would indicate that we are trying to break from that isolated, rather lonely position that universities might have had in the past to feeling more part of our own communities, more part of our various industries, and in this case, the creative industries. And it is, I spent 10 times longer in the media industry than I have in this role in a university. And as an employer out there, I was very aware of the totally different life experience that modern graduates have to what I had, and nurturing their individualism. You made a point about how different the take of an individual student is one from the other. Well, I think it is our obligation as employers, but also as universities, to nurture individualism. And if there's anything that defines the creative industries and the creative arts, it's finding the distinctive voice of each individual and giving people the confidence to express themselves. It's not about homogenizing skills, it's about nurturing unique and special talents that redefine their creative environment and hence redefine society for all of us.
Thank you, Patrick. Let's take another question. Who's got a question? Well, let's start with the gentleman in the second row and then the lady in the third row. Okay, we've got quite a number of questions. Okay, I think what we'll do is, if we could take your question first, followed by the lady in the third row, and there was a lady towards the back. All right, I'm sorry I can't take all the questions. Let's take those in that order. Please, sir.
예, 제가 영어를 못해서 통역기를 쓰셔야 될 것 같습니다. 저는 충주 여중에 근무하는 김성국입니다. 패트릭 라우리 씨에게 질문하고 싶습니다. 아까 발표에서 하신 말씀이 창조는 나뭇가지 끝에서 변해야 된다고 말씀하셨습니다. 그래서 상당히 의미가 있는 얘기 같기도 했습니다. 제 생각엔 뿌리부터 변해야 될 것 같은데, 어쨌든 나뭇가지부터 변해야 된다는 얘기를 구체적인 예를 들어서 한번 설명을 해줬으면 좋겠습니다.
Institutional life tends to protect what I call the trunk of the tree. Modern computer science was once a tiny branch of a tree called mathematics, and it generated and fertilized and grew. Modern media studies, one of the most progressive and interesting departments in Goldsmiths, was once a tiny branch of sociology. It is very interesting how what is once a specialist, narrow, tiny bud on the edge of a branch of a tree, if it captures what is necessary in society and what is relevant to modern society, can attract far more students than any of us might have predicted at the beginning, and suddenly become a defining and important part of the modern academy. And equally, subjects that used to be dominant in university life, it would be invidious for me to name them, but they tend to decline and shrivel, and they have a long, cold winter. And that is universities responding to the passions and interests of their students and the interests and needs of modern society. And it does to innovation and alteration, in my experience in work and now in university, is often at the intersection, the edges, the overlap between one discipline and another. And sometimes unpredictable and spontaneous things happen more freely there than in the orthodoxy of a long-established discipline.
Thank you. Can I take your question? The lady in the third row.
안녕하십니까. 저는 조선왕조 문화예술연구소 산업 황치성입니다. 오늘 이 시간을 무척 기다렸습니다. 전통의 문화를 어떻게 산업화하고 창조하고 그것이 국가 발전에 기여할 수 있는가를 무척 고민하고 있었는데요. 저는 폴 탐슨 선생님께 질문을 하겠습니다. 왕립예술학교에서 영국의 전통 왕실의 문화를 어떻게 산업화하고 대학과 연계해서 그 생산성을 높이는 구체적인 예를 좀 말씀해 주시면 좋겠고요. 그다음 왕실예술대학이 국립인지 아니면 사립인지 그 과는 어떤 과들이 있고 어떻게 운영되고 있는지 굉장히 궁금합니다.
There may have been a translation.
Okay, I'll try and answer that question. The RCA is a public school, and I'm going to answer it slightly differently in terms of the blend of tradition and innovation and the way that the two feed off each other, particularly in design and the creative arts. At the RCA, to give you an example, we don't throw anything away. So we keep all the original printing presses that we actually had when the school opened in 1837. We still have the printing press we were using in 1839. We still have stone lithography presses from the 18th century. We still have the industrial offset and silkscreen presses from the 1970s from industrial commercial practice. And then we have the latest digital high-end printing equipment. So we've never gone completely digital. What we find is most exciting is when people interplay between the digital and the analog, between the ancient craft technologies and the contemporary world. And that's very much the RCA experience. None of the equipment ever gets thrown away. We just keep adding to it and encouraging our fine art photographers to, they have to all study with film. They're not allowed to go straight into digital photography and into moving image. They have to start with film. We don't have a broad MFA degree, Masters in Fine Art. You have to do a 2-year specialist master's program in printmaking or sculpture or photography or in painting. So I hope that answer gives you some sense of the way that tradition and innovation kind of work together.
Thank you, Paul. We have time for one more question. I think there was a lady, over on that side who had her hand up quite early. Could the microphone get to her? We have 4 minutes. We have a very strict regime here. Just to remind you, as we get the microphone to this lady, that we have part 2 of this session where you will hear from 3 presenters, which will give us more time for questions and discussion. Please, go ahead.
I want to ask a question mostly about these creative industries. As the presentation goes, I heard many things about collaborations with arts and science, but I really want to know about the actual examples about how this collaboration of art and science links to the creative industries, or how these studies of art and science link to the industries so it can be actually used in society. And I want to also hear an explanation about the service design, which was explained by Sir Mark Smith. I thought it was a really interesting point. So
thank you. We've had some, I think, quite interesting examples of the first. For example, at the University of the Arts, the use of technology in textiles. And let's turn to Mark about the service design, a very interesting new area. Mark.
Yeah. So the whole point about the kind of interdisciplinarity is that many areas of development have traditionally been very disciplinary based. If you look at the idea of service, there are many kind of criteria by which service can be actually developed, and one of them is the way you actually. So for example, if you're going into a hospital and the way you interact with the hospital, the way the hospital provides information for you, you can often look at it to be a technological solution, but at the same time, where the art comes in and the broader concepts of culture, etc., is that the need to understand how the person is going to interact with that information requires the service to take a broader view of how it's transferring that information, how it's interaction with the person, and that requires many disciplinary areas to come together. And that's the whole culture of service design being a broad interdisciplinary development. A kind of another example, which is not a particular service, but will apply to particularly some areas of Korean industry, is technology in itself can often not fix technological problems, in the sense that you can come up with the most kind of innovative solution to a problem, but if it's not acceptable to the way people want to live their lives, if it doesn't change the behavior of the person, particularly, for example, in the area of energy, you often need teams that have social scientists and humanities people who can explain to the scientists why people think the way they do, and hence that will allow the scientists to come up with a better solution using the technology. And those ideas, if you'd have talked about those ideas, say, 10 years ago, you'd have had a very skeptical response from scientists. And I'm not trying to say that there aren't kind of hardliners at some wings who still say this is all a load of old nonsense. But what about there's actual now evidence that these interdisciplinary teams, the way companies operate, the way governments operate, meaning it's having a real effect.
Thank you. Please return later on in half an hour to join us again. We will certainly be hearing from Professor Tom Innes. I'm sorry, Tom, we haven't heard you at this session. Store up your questions, and we'll hope to see most of you very soon. Thank you very much.